Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. I am Kelly Birmingham. This is a 25-year look back across the spectrum, chronicling my 25, now 28 years in the field working with children and adults with autism and developmental disabilities. I'm a board certified behavior analyst and have been for 20 years now. And with me is my partner in crime, Jennifer Lucero, mom to Dylan and Ethan. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Kelly.
So before we dive into today's podcast, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, SitePro. SitePro offers a wide range of ongoing and practical continuing education courses developed by BCBAs for BCBAs, including me. I do several courses on that website, and you can visit their website at sitepro.com to see their complete CEU library, including our podcasts are on there, provided for free. So anyone can get CEUs on demand for free by listening to us.
Awesome.
I was recently at a conference and several people approached me and said that they were fans and listened to our podcast all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know you knew about it. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And at the company I work, we just hired two behavioral therapists, and they said they also listened to it. So it's good to know we're developing a fan base. And so this podcast is dedicated to taking topics related to autism and ABA and talking it through a BCBA's perspective and a mom's perspective. So this one's a little probably emotional for you, Jen. And if people have listened to our podcast, they know that you have two sons, one Dylan, who is on the more severely impacted side of autism. And I have a stepdaughter who's in the moderate, sometimes more mild presentation, depending on her sort of mental status, presentation of autism. And with that comes a lot of challenges. And today we're going to, sorry, that's my work phone going off. Today we're going to talk about what happens when your kid hurts you physically, right?
Yep.
So, as a BCBA, we are always trying to help families work on things that are meaningful. And I'll do a little quick plug here. I was doing some research on this sort of new topic called value-based care, which is the way our industry is going, where payers want to pay companies or reimburse them based on very specific indicators. And that is the cost performance, the quality performance, and the experience performance. So the quality means how effective was the treatment. Cost was how well was is the cost worth the money? And then the last one is experience performance, which measures the parent's satisfaction of the therapy, right? And so you and I talk a lot about quality of life. And so as behavior analysts, we want to spend time trying to help reduce problem behavior and teach new skills. But I can't even imagine what it's like. Now, I work in severe behavior. I get attacked, right? I get kicked, bit, spit on. Someone in our clinic got their face bit the other day. It's pretty severe. But I can't imagine what that's like when it's your own child. Will you talk about this so that other parents can relate to it, that maybe experience it, but BCBAs and behavior therapists listening can really, truly understand the parent's perspective when your own child is getting very physical with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily it doesn't happen very often anymore.
Right.
He was definitely more aggressive when he was younger. But there has been some major incidents that have happened. And part of, for me, one of the main issues is his size. Now, I mean, first of all, he's a man. Even though he's like a boy, like inside, but he's huge. I mean, he's 6 feet tall. Since he's been getting treatment for his Crohn's, he gained a bunch of weight back, which is a good thing, but he's pretty bulky.
Yep.
So he's very big, he's very strong. And so when he does go off, I'm only 5'2", so he towers over me. So it's, hard. I am trained
Mm-hmm.
in crisis management, including like, I did a huge training multiple times for physical training of how to defend myself, how to protect him
Mm-hmm.
in a situation, how to protect others. So it's not like I'm not skilled or trained, but again, like you said, once it's your own kid, it's like very difficult.
Yep.
But yeah, the
Let's
last
let's
major,
pause for a second.
okay.
I made a note about the fact that you were trained in crisis management. I went on this quest for a while because some of the crisis management companies that we all get trained in,
Mhm.
when you ask them, can we train parents or caregivers with this? They'll tell you no. And I
Mhm.
won't name anyone out, but there are several of those crisis teams that say, once I'm trained, you can't go train a caregiver, like very specifically. I found that so insulting. And so I know in organizations I've worked in, I've sought out the organizations that the crisis management organizations that say, yes, you can show families how to use these techniques to stay safe. Some of the companies wanted parents to have to pay. And I'm like, and so we had to actually make agreements that we would say, like, we're demonstrating these skills to parents to protect themselves, but the the crisis management company says you can't sign off that they're truly trained. Like it's actually kind of like a whole thing. And I was really shocked when I went down that path. And I
Yeah,
remember when
that's
you had yours
interesting.
done
Yeah.
by
I
the
mean, I even
organization.
got a certificate.
Yep. And it's this, and I don't want to name out any companies because
Yeah,
things might have changed since
of
then,
course.
but the company that allowed you
Hmm.
to be trained as a caregiver is also the one that I've sought out. So if BCBAs are listening, I think it's super important that caregivers are trained in these techniques, and certificate or not, they need to be trained, and you need to work with organizations that will allow you to train caregivers.
Yeah, interestingly, when I did it, and I've done it for work too. I mean, because I worked within special ed in the school
Mm-hmm.
district
Yep.
and with behavior, but I mean, I work for nonprofits, but that deal with behavior as well. But at the time, I was strictly as a parent, but there was a need. But when I did it, it was multiple days. It was like
Yep.
full days, and I when I went, they were training their staff, and I was one of only two parents in the whole thing, and I think that was rare at the time. I think I was one of the
Yeah.
few that was, but I mean, doesn't that show something? Because that showed that they had been with Dylan, I think at that point, maybe about 4 years, and they clearly saw the need. I will say, I think this was I believe this is before a lot of the major insurance takeover happened, where
Yes, it was.
the insurance was trying to dictate like what services and what the goals were and what you know, the sessions and all that. So maybe I slipped in at the right time,
Yep.
but it's just so vital. I mean, just for safety reasons for.
Yep.
And then I will say that if it's okay to say, you helped actually in a different way, but you specifically had some courses at one
Mm-hmm.
point, and you actually helped guide and train my mom, Grandma Jan,
Yep.
and Ethan, my other son, to help. And I think honestly, especially for Ethan, that has really helped him in the long run with some situations that have come up to protect me,
Yeah.
in recent years.
Yep. Yeah. And so I just want to pause that for our families, advocate for themselves, other BCBAs or ABA folks listening that working with families. Like I just worked with a family recently whose their son is very big. Um,
Mhm.
he can do a lot of house destruction, a lot of aggression, about creating a safe space for him, which is like what we did with Dylan when
Yeah.
he was younger, and being okay to direct him into that safe space and teach him and her how to keep him in there, right?
Mhm.
Safely. So,
Yeah.
all right. So let's go back to it. So major incident, what happens? Your
Yes.
mom, walk us through what that feels like.
Um, well, at first, I'm always like, when Dylan does escalate, it's like, 0 to 60. It's not like the slow progression. Like a lot of times you just, you don't have time to just like, you know, think about it and
Mm-hmm.
talk him out of it. Like once he's in one, he's in one. And the last time, which was pretty hardcore, part of what I think the issue was for me was there was someone downstairs and I didn't want them to know something was happening. It was a caregiver, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
I thought I could diffuse it and calm him down. So we were upstairs in my room. Typically, when something happens, it's downstairs, and I have a total plan.
I know you do.
And so I know, and it's much more spacious, and there's like a specific chair,
Yep.
or I can safely get him also. Sometimes, like, you can guide him to go on the ground,
Yep.
and he'll just go himself
Yep.
almost into this fetal position and work it out. But we were in my room, which is very condensed. There's a lot happening in there. I have really big wooden furniture. And he just went, he went crazy. He went after me. I don't even remember why. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
remember what happened. That set him off. And he started attacking me. And he was trying to bite me. He was trying to rip my hair out.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to choke me. And so I was trying to defend myself. And, if I can usually get his hands, down and obviously, safely, I'm not grabbing him by the sides. I'm doing everything I'm trained to do. So it's usually like the wrist thing,
Yes.
So I was trying to, get him in a space and like get him, this sit down and hopefully lay on the ground. But there
And the
was no,
sitting part's so important because he's so much taller than you.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And it's like, I'm trying to push myself. I have short arms. This guy is like got the longest arms
Yeah,
and legs.
he does.
So he's just like, he's got a lot of like space compared to me. So I was trying to dodge him from biting me at the time. And then he also will do a thing of starting to try to bite himself. So I try to like, lean his hand down. So I don't want him to bite me. I also don't want him to self injury. So it's like this battle where you're trying. So I actually got him he actually went on the ground, but then he started doing almost like this wild, like from a horror movie or something, like this crazy like quick crawl at me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to move back and he was trying to bite my leg then, so I was like trying to like get him off my leg. It was crazy. He did bite my leg. It was
Mm-hmm.
pretty intense. I was seeing stars. And then I was trying to just get him on the ground, and I I can't remember now whether, because he was lunging up at me, and
Yeah.
I was leaning down. I leaned back, and I don't know if he pushed me or if I was just
Mm-hmm.
lunging back, but I hit this armoire that is like a corner huge wooden thing from like Indonesia, and I hit just right or bad the corner, and I completely cracked my head open, and I was like, I saw stars. I almost passed out. I almost knocked myself out. And then I was like, I grabbed the back. He saw it, and like he like stopped because he could tell that I was really injured. So he actually just like went like, backed up, sat up, and then he said, "Mommy crackhead," you know.
Yeah.
So he knew I was injured. And then I had like a flow of blood coming
Yeah.
out of my head. And I just was just like, oh my God, like I didn't even know what to do. So it was like horrible. It was so upsetting. It's like when you talk about it later, which I have not, no one even knows. There's probably 3 people that know this. It's not something I want to advertise, you know.
Right.
You
Good
know,
thing we don't have that many listeners.
well, I just mean, I'm not going to be like calling like friends, and I don't
Right.
know, I'm not one, okay, for one thing, I try to always stay positive on
You
social
do.
media. And I'm not one to be like, woe is me, like, autism's in the house. It's in the house every day. Like I try to focus on the good things that are happening, and like, but I have my internal stuff, and
Mhm.
I have stuff that I do, and I do have a tribe, and I have people that I go to when stuff like this happens. I was really worried at the time I was alone. I
Yeah.
called you
Yes.
because I was like, where are you?
Mhm.
Because I know sometimes you work near me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was completely alone.
Yep.
And I honestly thought for a little bit that I might have to go to the emergency room. I didn't
Yep.
know if I needed stitches. I was trying to get the bleeding to stop, which it did. So I was trying to figure out and debating like, what do I do now? Which is a whole nother stressful challenge. And then it's hard because even like it was a time frame too, because it was at night. Like, I couldn't just go, like my regular doctor at the time would knows my situation. So
Huh.
it wouldn't come across as like, she would be understanding.
Yes.
There's also a fear of like, what is anybody gonna think? Like, are
Yes.
you gonna think like, that something really bad's happening?
Yeah.
And I don't want anything to happen to Dylan. I don't want anything to happen to me or anybody involved. But it was really scary. It was depressing. I was pretty upset. I mean, it was sobbing all night. You end up coming over.
We drank wine.
I was taking pictures.
Yeah.
I was trying to take selfies of the back of my head, and send them to a couple of people that I knew would actually, first of all, either know medically if I
Right.
needed to go in. And then I'm like, what am I going to do with him?
Right. You
He's
couldn't
like,
go. You were
I
alone.
like, there's so many aspects.
Yep.
So and then I was afraid to tell certain people that I'm
Yeah.
close to because, like, even though we think they understand, there's certain people, especially that I'm very close to, as much as they care for Dylan and love Dylan, that, that thought that he would have done something to potentially, like, injure me. That is very hard for people to take.
It is.
So there's that whole aspect too, you know what I mean? Of worrying about like friendships and relationships and stuff. So yeah, it was pretty crazy and awful. And knock on wood, it's been a long time and we've had a good streak. But it just reminded me too that I always have to be on my guard, have to have a gotta have that
Yeah.
emergency like kit at home and stuff. And then I learned for sure, like next time I gotta not try to do that in that room, and not
Yeah.
worry about. Also, I think part of my problem is, why am I worried about what other people think? Like, especially if someone is there that's supposed to be there to help me and help Dylan, like, what do I have to prove, I guess? Do you know what I mean?
I do. And one of the things, like, I know I talked to you every day for a few days after that. Like, you were sad. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't go through the physical attacks with Melanie, my stepdaughter, but I go
Mhm.
through a lot of verbal
Yeah,
attacks.
yeah.
And it's really hard in the moment to not take it personally.
Mhm.
And as a BCBA myself, what I was what I wanted to really just to point out is that sometimes our job isn't to problem solve right away. Sometimes it's just to support parents to be okay in the moment
Mhm.
of like, that sucked, right? Like that really
Yeah.
freaking sucked.
Yeah, it was
And
awful. It
and
was
then when you
crazy.
were ready to problem solve, right? And same for myself, when you like be okay to allow everyone to like know that sucks. And then you have to go back. Like you're so amazing. Like you immediately were like, okay, well, I shouldn't have done it this way. I should have done it that way. And I'm moving on, positive new strategy.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
you did kind of have a few days where you were really sad and scared, and you get to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we should be able to, I mean, because it is like when you think about it later, and or if you tell anybody, like if you tell, especially if someone doesn't know about the situation or autism, or like, just what can happen. Like, I mean, if I just told somebody that had no clue, like,
Yeah.
it sounds crazy. It is crazy. It's awful. Like, there's nothing worse than just thinking that your own kid is just gonna lose it and like go after you, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, and you, I always, honestly, the two, I think through the years, like the two most awful things to me, what for me, I guess physically, has always been the hair pulling, like ripping your hair out,
Yeah.
but really the biting thing. Like
Yeah.
even like, I mean, it's one thing to get hit, but the biting thing is just so, it's so scary. It
So
really
scary.
is, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super scary.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, your willingness to share this is unbelievable because I know a lot of people that wouldn't share
Mm,
or sugarcoat it, right?
mhm.
Or be super negative and angry about it. And like that's why you're so amazing, because like you're really real and honest about it, but you're also admitting the fact that you don't tell people, and some people, and the reasons why. And I imagine a lot of families go through that where they don't tell people things because of how they might perceive Dylan differently or their
Mhm.
child differently, right?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, I mean, there's even close relatives that in a positive way that I would not tell. And luckily, like, they're older and they're social media.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because some people are so protective that if they would have heard that, like I know it sounds crazy, but like I don't want people to hold things against Dylan either.
Right.
Like if I can get past it
Right.
and I can learn from it and like find ways to make hopefully it not happen again, then I'm not going to hold a grudge, and I don't want anybody else to either,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, and Ethan's always said this too, his he's got his own issues with Dylan's done, and Dylan mainly would go after me,
Right.
for whatever reason, but Ethan's always said, like, do you think he wants to be like this? Like, I mean, he says that, like,
Yeah.
when he does his speeches or whatever, he
Hmm.
talks to people about autism. And I totally agree. I don't, Dylan, I gotta say too, Dylan later is always remorseful. I
Yes.
think he gets himself so riled up that it's almost like an out of body experience when
Uh-huh.
he is doing it. um, I don't think like he intentionally wants to hurt me. It's like it's just, it is. I don't, I mean, now I feel like I'm just totally defending him, but
You should. He's your son,
I know,
right?
I
That's the
mean,
whole point of this.
yeah, I mean, I love him and
Right.
I know he loves me, and like, I want to help him like get through things so he doesn't get into that state,
Yeah. It's all about communication for him.
Mhm.
And when he gets to that point, he doesn't have all the words to express how he
Mhm.
feels. And so it comes out that way.
Mhm.
Well, oh, thank you. I mean, for BC, I'm sure there are family members that are listening that will say, yeah, 100% that's what we go through. I'm also hoping any behavior therapists listening go, I need to put myself in the shoes of these caregivers and like, really be mindful of one, am I helping and training and supporting them to be safe, keep
Mhm.
everyone safe? And if something does happen, I'm there listening with them and supporting fully presently. And then when the caregiver's ready, go back around and work specifically with them about how to make that better.
For sure. I think the number one thing since we've met you and, known you from day one, since he was 4
Yeah.
and Ethan was 2, is safety.
Safety. Yep.
I mean, in all aspects, it's always in that safety and happiness
And health.
and health.
Yep.
Yeah, the 3.
That's value-based care right there, people. Is the child in the family safe, healthy, happy? There you go.
Yep. And he is right now, knock on wood.
That's right. He's in a good place right now, so it's all good. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for sharing your story.
sure.
We did have wine that night. We'll have to
Yes,
go have some wine again and celebrate that he's in a good place right now.
for sure.
All right. Thanks to everyone listening today, and thanks to our sponsor, SitePro.
Thank you.